This is the instruction manual for my minivan. That's right, I'm at the stage of life when I no longer have a sports car, I now rock a minivan. This is the instruction manual for my van. Your car might be newer than mine and maybe it's all digital, but mine is old school, 512 pages of, literally I counted, 512 pages of instructions on how to run the wipers properly and what to do if you lose traction in the vehicle, and helpful tips like what tire pressure it should have. And I don't know if you've ever had this one, if the battery is disconnected for long enough, the theft deterrent deal shuts down the stereo. And there's a code in here somewhere amidst the 512 pages to allow you to play your music again. Okay? It's useful, but how many of you guys, show of hands, how many of you, when you got your most recent vehicle, you pulled out the instruction manual and read it cover to cover? That's what I thought. Yeah, me neither. I love instruction manuals, 512 pages, it's just not going to happen. This is America. You can pay attention to everything in this book. You can completely ignore it and just do what you want. But if you want things to go well with the vehicle that you own, if you want it to be a joyful experience while you own it, you probably should pay attention to some of the stuff in here. And here's why. Because the people who designed your vehicle, who know how it was meant to operate, they're the ones who wrote this stuff. And if you use something the way it was intended to be used, it tends to go better. Okay? This is an instruction manual for the human race. This is an instruction manual for Homo sapiens, and it was written by the guy who designed the human species. Nobody knows the mind and the body better than the one who made it out of dust. And God gave us this manual not to boss us around, not to make life harder, not to put, yesterday, my son does track and field. Yesterday he was jumping hurdles in a race, okay? This is not to put hurdles in the way of life's race. It's there to help you to operate in harmony with the way that you were designed. Because just like your car, when you operate the way that you were intended to operate, things tend to go better. And so we're at the beginning of a multi-week journey where we're looking for happiness in sometimes unexpected places. And we find those things because the guy who created us gave us a manual on how we should live. Here's what the Bible says about the Bible. This is Jesus talking about commandments in John chapter 15. And he says this. He says, "When you obey my commandments, you will remain in my love. And I've told you these things," this all of the stuff in here, "I've told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy." Okay? Here's why I gave you all the commandments. Here's why they're in here. So that you can have joy and lasting happiness. Life's not perfect. There's always going to be pain. Sometimes the Packers will win games, right? You can't have everything that you want in life. I know, it makes me sad too, Ryan. You can't have everything that you want in life. But, if you submit your life to God and you do things His way, it tends to go better. In the long run, you win more than you lose. And He gave you these commandments to make life happier. So we're going to dive into a few over the next 5 weeks. I want to start with one today that is, I think, pretty relatable. I can teach it because I've lived it, and there's happiness in a place you wouldn't expect. Watch this.
Imagine with me that you're a lawn guy or girl. You love your lawn. You baby your lawn. Your lawn is so beautiful that Scott's Turf Builder has been pestering you about shooting their next commercial in your lawn. Imagine you're that kind of lawn person, and you come out one morning to enjoy this beautiful swath of earth that God has blessed you with, when you see that the neighbor's dog, Bruno, has deposited an odious reminder of his most recent visit in your pristine lawn. Now, that's annoying for anybody. But a normal person would pick it up, throw it away, maybe go talk to the neighbor and say, "Hey, listen, I'm trying to have an award-winning lawn here. Would you mind just picking up after your dog?" Easy, it's done. And then you can get back to your Saturday. But imagine if instead of throwing it away, you decided to carefully preserve this excrement that Bruno, the German Shepherd, so maliciously left in your yard. So that just like the Alamo, you would never forget the wrong that was done to you. Imagine if you put it in a baggie and you wore it around your neck so that anywhere you went, you could always take a sniff. Oh, and remember how bad that was. You could go on a poop crusade, telling yard owners everywhere of the wrong that was done to you by Bruno. It could become part of your introduction. Hi, my name's Chris. Good to meet you. Would you believe what my neighbor's dog did to my yard? Look, I have proof. It still smells bad. See it? What? Do you want to smell it? You can smell it for yourself. See, look. Can you smell how bad that is? Can you believe that a dog would? What kind of dog would do that? That's silly, right? You wouldn't actually do that. Actually, you kind of have. And so have I. We have a tendency when we've been done wrong to hang on to things, to preserve them and think about them over and over. And there's an important life principle when it comes to happiness that you need to understand. If you focus on the bad in your life, you'll miss a lot of the good.
Write that down. If you focus on the bad in your life, you will miss a lot of the good. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say for the record, Bruno is a good boy. Bruno is my friend. I love Bruno. I bought a thing of dog biscuits just for the neighbor's dog because he and I are buddies. And if he needed to make a deposit in the yard, I would forgive him. But it's kind of silly, right? It's preposterous to think that somebody would actually do that with something that stinks. The last thing I want to do is smell this all the time. But I have lived it, not literally with dog poop, that's weird. I have lived this, and you have too, and it is such a cap on, a blockade to happiness in your life that I want to talk you through God's method of letting go of this stuff. We're talking about forgiveness today, but really I want to focus specifically on a part of the process that we get hung up on, resentment. Because a lot of us can say, oh yeah, that's okay, I forgive them. But the hurt and the bad feelings from what was done, it just keeps coming up again and again and again. So here's God's happiness life hack for the day. It's found in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 9. We'll put it up on the screens for you. It's simple. It goes like this. Love prospers when a fault is forgiven, but dwelling on it separates close friends. Things go well when a fault is forgiven. Your love for others, your love for life is able to prosper once something is out of your life again, once that pain is gone. But dwelling on it, coming back to it again and again and thinking about it again and again and focusing the lens of your mind on that again and again, it separates you not only from people but from happiness. You're unable to experience the good in life. And we've all, I think, to some degree experienced this. We've all had this happen. I think we've all had stuff that just ruined your day, ruined your week, ruined your month. Why do we do this? Here's just my 2 cents worth from living on the earth for a while, but there are some benefits to hanging on to what's been wrong in your life. There's a reason why we as humans do this. It's not just because we love pain and we hate joy. There are some things that you gain when you hang on to the hurt. Because as long as you hang on to what somebody has done to you, then you remain the victim and they are the villain. And as long as you're the victim, there are some benefits. If you are the victim, then you kind of have moral superiority over that person that wronged you. Because you might have some issues in your life, but it's not like what they did to you. And as long as in your mind, John is the villain in my life, I'll never be as bad as John. At least I didn't step up and forget what I was going to say on the announcement. Right? How could he do this? Just kidding. Okay? Being the victim also gains you sympathy. Okay? Some of you, you have done this, or some of you, you know that person in life that every time anything is wrong, they come to you and they, would you believe what my husband said again? He leaves his socks everywhere, right? And you get sympathy, and people are like, oh, I feel so bad for you. That must stink. Do you need help? Can I help you with something? And it also does this. Sometimes you have been wronged by somebody, and either you know that you shouldn't get them back, right? We know revenge is not God's way. Or maybe they're in a position of power and you can't get them back, right? You can't personally get the governor back, but you could trash his reputation so bad that maybe I can hurt him a little bit. And I get just this little sample of revenge, right? It's not the full meal. It's like the Costco or Sam's Club, like, here's this salmon you can buy in a 17-pound bag. I'm not going to buy a 17-pound bag of salmon, but if they want to give me a free sample, like, I'm for it, right? It still tastes good. We have all of these things. There are benefits. Here's the thing you need to know, and write this down. You have a right to be angry when something like that happens to you. And you have a right to hang on, but hanging on to it comes at a cost. And the cost is your ability to appreciate the joy-giving things that are around you. Because if you're wearing this around your neck, it's really hard to smell the flowers. As much as you want to, it's a little flower and a lot of, oh, Lord, I need coffee to bury my nose in, right? When you focus so much on the hurt, legitimately, it makes it hard to appreciate what's good in your life, because your life's lens is just calibrated for pain. And eventually in life, you're going to have to let go of one or the other, happiness or resentment. And none of you want to hang on to this stuff, but it's hard, and it's human nature. We tend to do it. And I believe that because it's that broken part of our nature that wants to hang on, that's why God in his instruction manual says this stuff's going to happen, pain's going to come. When it does, releasing things brings love into your life and it can flourish, but hanging on to it, that resentment, it sort of chokes the life out of you. And so I want to give you a couple of tips from the designer on how to let this go. Okay? If you want to let go of resentment, if you don't want to keep smelling the bad, here's some things that you can do. Things that you need to understand. All right, first one is this. Write this down. Forgiving doesn't make what happened okay. Choosing to forgive does not mean that what happened, whatever it was, is okay. This was a challenge for me, and I don't mind telling you, I got stuck on this part of the forgiveness process for like a year in my life. Because I knew that God wanted me to forgive and truly release. Okay, forgiving is like letting go of your right to hang on to it. It's letting go of your right to still feel badly about that person. It's truly releasing it. And my struggle was, God, what they did was wrong. And if I forgive them, it's like saying, it's okay, you can do it again. It's okay, it never happened. But when you look at the Bible, that's not the way that Jesus forgave. Jesus encountered sinful people who were doing wrong stuff, and he forgave them, but his forgiveness was never, okay, you can't find a spot in the Bible where Jesus encountered someone who was living a sinful life, and he said, I forgive you, keep being awesome, high five, right? Or like the cool one where you high five, and then you like circle around and like windmill the high five in the back, like high five and a half, right? That never happened. It didn't happen. Jesus, okay, so guys had found this woman who was caught having an affair, and in the middle of that, and they bring her in front of Jesus and they say, should we kill this woman because she was sinning? Right? And Jesus said, whichever one of you has no sin, you throw the first stone. He says, if you're perfect, then you kill her. Otherwise, leave her alone. And Jesus looks at this woman who was sinning, and he said, I forgive you. Now, go stop doing that. Jesus walks through town. He's going through Jericho, and you want to talk about corporate greed and the 1% choking the life out of everybody? Zacchaeus, the tax collector, was putting everybody else in poverty so that he could live in the lap of luxury. And Jesus comes to him and he says, I'm going to have lunch at your house today. And he talks to this guy, and Zacchaeus has this huge change in his life. Jesus forgives him, but he also says, I realize I was wrong. I need to change what I'm doing. Forgiving someone doesn't make what happened okay. Write this down in your notes. It's only forgiveness if there's something to forgive. Otherwise, you're just being too sensitive. Okay? I think we've all lived at some point in the home with someone who's just a little bit too sensitive. You're like, really? Really? We're upset over this? Your feelings are hurt over this? You know, you don't want to be that. And usually minor things, mild things, they don't cause this. I don't walk around thinking of, I can't believe that, you know, they left the toilet seat up or down or put their toothbrush and they got toothpaste on my side of the counter, right? Nobody cares about that stuff. It's only forgiveness if there's something to forgive. But it's hard when what was done to you is wrong and it never should have happened. And there is a part of you that will push back and say, if I let this go, it's like telling them that's okay. I'm here to tell you, it's not. That's not how Jesus modeled forgiveness. Forgiving someone is not saying what they did is okay. It's saying, I don't have to continue to be not okay because of what happened to me. What they did is not okay, but I can be okay if I let it go. So the first thing you need to understand about forgiveness, writing that offense off doesn't mean that what happened is okay. Here's the other one. This one's less fun, but it's true. Write this down. God requires you to forgive whether they're sorry or not. I don't know if you've ever had this happen. Forgiving someone is a lot easier if they come to you and they say, I'm sorry. It's a little bit easier if mom makes them come to you and say that they're sorry. We all know that's like 2/3 they don't mean it. They just know they have to. But if they approach you and they say, Jerry, I realized when I sent that text, that was really offensive. I wasn't thinking. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? It's a lot easier than if you have someone that's like, well, it's your own fault if that hurt. It's because you're too sensitive. You ever have those people? What? Are you kidding? You're upset about that? Are you stupid? Did you get dropped on your head as a kid? What kind of an idiot would get, oh, this is ridiculous. Okay? It's hard to forgive that person. I want to double down on this. Like, I want to throw this right back in their face at that person, right? Let me jam this up your nostrils and see how you like it. That's what I want to do. But the guy who designed your life, the guy who wrote the manual says you have to forgive, period. Colossians 3:13, here's how he worded it. He says, make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone. Everybody say anyone. What type of person gets an exemption for that word? Nobody. Okay, what type of offense? What type of offense is not covered when God says anyone? Nothing. It's everything. There's no loophole here. He says, make allowance for each other's faults, forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Ugh, I hate that word must. It makes me think of when I'm getting out old boxes and clothes have been in there for a long time and they smell musty. I know that's completely unrelated to must. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. I hate that he says, you have to do this, Chris. This is not a suggestion from the designer. This is a requirement. So if you're here and you're just kind of checking out Christianity, if your friend has been saying, man, this would make a difference in your life, let me watch this video. You get to choose if you want to follow these instructions or not. But if you're here and you're a Christian, if you've made Jesus Lord in your life, if you decided you need him to forgive you of your sin so that you can be accepted into God's family, you have to do this. And it's hard. And it is a difficult thing to bend your will to do. You're going to need his help to do it. I can teach this, guys, because I have lived this. I have had things that in the grand scope of your pain may not seem like that big of a deal. But it's amazing. A bullet wound or a paper cut can both become infected and gangrenous. It doesn't take getting stabbed to go septic. It could be the smallest thing. But once that turns sour, it turns everything in your life sour. And so I had this moment years ago when my kids were little. When the weather was good, kind of like it's supposed to be right now, but this is Illinois. But when the weather is good, we would, after church, we would like let the kids take a nap, and then we would get up and we would go to a park. Somewhere, nature center, something like that. And we go and just enjoy nature. We'd let the kids play on the swings, and we'd walk around the pond or whatever it was. And so this was one of those days. We went and did that. And when it was done, before it was dark, we said, hey, let's drive into Sonic and get ice cream and soda. So we drove into Sonic. We got all of this stuff. And I was sitting in the car waiting for the order to come. And I'm just browsing through, and I'm not a big Instagram guy, but I just opened Instagram, and I saw some of my posts from years ago. And I'm scrolling through those, and this crazy thing happened to me, and I don't know if this has happened to you. But I looked at the pictures, and I said, wow, I'm smiling in those. I look so happy in those. And I realized that I looked happy in those, and that stood out because I didn't feel happy now. I can't remember the last time it was that I just felt that joy in life, that I just felt happiness. And here's the thing, guys. I was surrounded by things that should have made me happy. I had 4 kids who were still young and small enough that they thought Dad was the superhero. They were like up to here, right? They still thought everything I did was a great idea, and every piece of advice was wisdom from the guy on the mountain, right? And a beautiful wife and a nice car, and we had just spent time out in nature relaxing, and I was about to have ice cream and soda and get all of the sugar and caffeine in my system. I should have been living on top of the world. Now, the thing is, all of the factors that should have made me happy were there. I was soaking in it, and I couldn't appreciate any of it because a few things that were wrong, that were done wrong, where I got bad treatment and the raw end of the deal, were so present on my mind. I couldn't appreciate the good in my life. I was miserable when I should have been happy. And maybe you know what that feels like. Letting go is hard. You're going to need help, but you have to do it. Until you do, you will never be able to smell the flowers in your life when you got poop hanging around your neck. He said poop in church. I didn't say the other options, okay? Watch this.
If you've lived with the kind of pain that causes resentment and keeps coming back up to your mind, the truth is you probably don't want to think about that stuff anymore. It hurts. It stinks. You don't want to keep feeling that, but if you're like me, you find yourself doing it over and over, no matter how many times you throw it in the trash. Something comes up, some situation, something reminds you of it. It's just quiet in the house. And you find yourself digging in the trash to dig that thing back up so you can hold it and think about it and feel that pain over and over again. Why do we do that? Because it's human nature. That's just par for the course. The last thing you need to write down is this: forgiveness is a process, and it takes patience. There are some things that it doesn't take a long time to forgive. If you bought some new Air Jordans and somebody stepped on your toe and it smudged them, you'd be upset. But years later, you're probably not thinking about that anymore. But there are hurts, there are pains that cut so deep that they don't heal in a day. It's not one and done. They have to heal in layers. Maybe you know what that's like. Maybe you shared a secret with someone and they gossiped it to everybody about you. And it ruined a friendship, and you ended up as an outcast from your own friend group. Maybe your stepmom criticized and criticized and criticized and criticized you to the point where as a middle-aged woman, you still have trouble with self-esteem and confidence. Maybe that manager worked you to the bone and never saw you as a human being, only as a production unit. And you gave everything you had for that company. And when it was time to review salaries for raises, they still passed you over. Maybe you trusted an adult in your life and they took advantage of you. They molested you. And when you tried to tell someone, nobody would believe you because, oh, that person would never do something like that. Maybe you thought you were doing business with someone who was honorable, and in the end, they scammed you and they cheated you out of money, and it led you to financial hardship for your family. Pain like that, you don't just wipe that away. It takes time. It takes patience. It's a process. And Jesus realized this. He commanded his disciples to forgive in Luke 17, and he specifically worded it in a way that would require an unbelievable amount of patience. He said, even if someone sins against you 7 times in a day, you have to forgive them every time. And his disciples, upon hearing this, were aghast. Are you kidding me? Are we supposed to do that? Their response, it not only makes sense, it's actually the key to doing this right. They said, Lord, increase our faith. If you circle back to the commandment we saw earlier in Colossians chapter 3, we actually get right before the command the secret to how to fulfill the command. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. And see, that's the key. That's that missing ingredient. God's instruction manual was not written for people who are trying their best to do it on their own. It was written for those who have God walking side by side through life with them. And if you have the kind of hurt that you keep digging out of the trash, you've already tried to fix it yourself. It's not working. You need God's help to let it go. And the good news is when you come to God and you ask for his help to do things his way, he's gonna help you. He's more invested in you doing it right than you are. God wants you to be happy. He's filled your life with things that can bring you joy. But as long as you're hanging on to the hurt, you'll never really be able to appreciate it. So make a decision. Let it go. Throw it away. Ask for God's help. And no matter how many times you pick it up out of the trash, throw it back in. It won't be fixed overnight, but if you stay committed to that, with God's help, you will keep throwing it away and you'll go back and pick it up less and less and less, until finally, you won't pick it up at all. And it'll never be fully gone. It'll always be there in the trash can in case you change your mind. But you'll find it's so far in the periphery of your mind, you don't notice it anymore. You don't smell that stink in your nostrils anymore. And for the first time, maybe in a long time, you'll be able to smell the flowers again. That's what God wants for you. That's how he wants you to experience this life that he's planted you in. That's finding happiness God's way.
Hey there, just wanted to take a minute to say thanks for watching. If a friend sent you this link, it's because they believe what we talked about today is going to make a positive impact in your life. And if it did, there's probably somebody that you care about who could benefit from it. So take a minute to share this video with somebody. Post it to your timeline or send them a direct link. And if you're able, take a minute to give using the link at the bottom of the description on this video. One last thing. Maybe you feel a tug at your soul and you're ready to take the next step in your spiritual life and form a relationship with God. We've got folks here who would love to talk with you about it. So just text prayer to the number on your screen and we'll follow up with you. It's also in the description on this video in case that helps. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.